my name is Bill Marion, and this is A Nose for Life. In this video, I'm taking you to one of Chattanooga, Tennessee's most famous attractions, Rock City Gardens. Rock City is located on Lookout Mountain, just a few miles from Chattanooga, Tennessee's scenic city. Now, this Rock City Gardens walkthrough is already underway, but let me just tell you, this is a different kind of video for our channel. I make a lot of top 10 videos to cover the places we visit, especially a place like this. I admit a top 10 video about Rock City would probably get more clicks. Top 10 videos normally do. But I wanted to do something different, so I'm relying on you to help this video circulate. For starters, go ahead and hit the like button, and while you're watching, be sure to leave comments and questions in the section below. We're visiting just after Christmas. In fact, they were taking the Christmas lights down during our visit. You know, I can't believe I've never been here during Christmas, but I hear it's awesome. Maybe next year. So we're not visiting during the peak season, to say the least. But if you don't like crowds, January and February is when to visit this very famous roadside attraction. So in this video, I'm taking you for a Rock City Gardens walkthrough during the off-season. And because it wasn't that crowded, I was able to cover a lot more of the park. So this video is a little longer. Be sure to stick around until the very end. From what I can tell, what we're presenting in this video is a very unique take on Rock City here on YouTube, which is why I didn't go with the top 10 list. So during the video, I'll share my thoughts and a few facts. As always, I've left links in the description. Let's get started. Carolyn and I have made videos on the rocky tops of mountains all over the Appalachians, but Rock City is unique. It was known as Rock City long before this privately owned park was ever built. This part of Lookout Mountain has been called Rock City at least since the Civil War. In case you didn't know, there was a Civil War battle on the slopes of Lookout Mountain. It's kind of controversial among Civil War enthusiasts. The discussion as to whether it was a battle or a glorified skirmish continues among students of the Civil War to this very day. There's a very nice Civil War park just down the road called Point Park. If you like military parks, it's pretty awesome. A lot of people visit Point Park either before or after a visit to Rock City, and maybe they add another Lookout Mountain attraction like Ruby Falls. I'm going to make a video about Ruby Falls in a few weeks. The name of that video is going to be something like The Truth About Ruby Falls or Ruby Falls Exposed. You don't want to miss that one. It's going to be a lot of fun. Lookout Mountain has a lot of roadside attractions, but it started with Rock City. Rock City is a perfect example of a 1920s or 1930s roadside attraction. We've talked a lot about roadside attractions on this channel. It's a concept that exploded when Americans first took to the roads in their automobiles. Roadside attractions were being built all over the U.S. during the same time as Rock City. So when Garnet and Frida Carter started Rock City back in 1932, they did so right at the beginning of the roadside attraction boom. It's said that the Carters were among the first permanent residents on Lookout Mountain. I'll explain that in a little more detail later in the video. The Carters knew the rock formations on their property were amazing. Now here's something you need to know about Garnet Carter. He was a marketing genius. Just to give you an example of how Garnet knew a good idea when he saw it, in addition to starting Rock City, he also invented mini golf. Seriously, no kidding, mini golf. Garnet's wife Frida was into European fairy tales, Grimm fairy tales, gnomes, things like that. So Frida is credited for Rock City's fairy tale and gardens vibe. I'll say more about that later in the video. Walking through these rock formations is amazing, and yes, you can find this scene on other mountaintops all over the Appalachian Mountains, but you're going to have to hike to those locations, and that's what makes this so unique. It's very accessible. We've made videos on this channel hiking a half a day or a whole day just to see amazing rock formations like this. As a matter of fact, there are some mountains in West Virginia that remind me a lot of Lookout Mountain. But again, Rock City is just so very accessible. And during the video, watch the way they connect the landscape architecture to nature. I haven't seen anything like this in the Appalachian Mountains. Not at this scale. And sadly, I've never really paid attention to it before here at Rock City because for whatever reason, I've always been here in peak season until this very trip. And as such, I've always felt rushed. For me, the art here is revealed when you lose track of what's real and what's man-made. Notice how the trail looks like it actually belongs here. I've spent most of my life in the Tennessee Valley, so I've been to Rock City more times than I can remember. I guess that's one of the problems with being a local. We bring friends and family here, and our visits are often a blur. I think that's why I enjoyed myself so much on this particular trip. It wasn't crowded, but 500,000 tourists visit Rock City Gardens every year. Each attraction here on Lookout Mountain boasts about the same number of visitors. Around the 4th of July, it's hot and it's very crowded, packed with tourists from all over the U.S. Rock City Gardens might be a great example of a roadside attraction, and it's not right off the interstate. That was a big problem for Garnet Carter back in 1932. But Garnet came up with an idea. He hired Clark Byers to travel the main roads all over the U.S., offering farmers fresh paint jobs in their barns in exchange for permission to add See Rock City to the roofs of as many as would allow him. And this strategy worked. What shocks me is that today, of the 900 barns painted, 100 still exist as far north as Michigan and as far west as Texas. The history of Lookout Mountain isn't as blurry as other famous scenic locations in the Appalachian Mountains. As one may expect, Native Americans first inhabited Lookout Mountain. Some websites claim that Lookout Mountain changed in 1823 when two missionaries, Daniel S. Buttrick and William Chamberlain, arrived and spread the word of the landscape's potential for development. Reverend Buttrick wrote in his diary that a citadel of rocks was arranged in such a way as to afford streets and lanes. And that's true, but it glosses over one of the darkest periods in U.S. history: the Indian Removal Act of 1830. It's something that has to be mentioned. Andrew Jackson's Indian Removal Act had a rippling effect throughout all the Appalachian Mountains. And for as many videos as I make in the Appalachian Mountains, I probably don't mention that enough in my videos. The Indian Removal Act changed everything. In 1838, following the Cherokee removal and the founding of Chattanooga, the Lookout Mountain Turnpike was built from an ancient Indian path leading up to Lookout Mountain. This opened the door for permanent settlements on Lookout Mountain, and almost immediately, Lookout Mountain gravitated towards being a vacation destination. And by the 1880s and 1890s, tourism flourished on Lookout Mountain. 2 incline railways were built, and a broad-gauge railroad provided transportation to the summit. In 1896, the U.S. War Department purchased Robert Craven's mountainside property where the Battle Above the Clouds took place, and that property was integrated into the Chickamauga and Chattanooga National Military Park. Whether true or just great marketing, Garnet Carter is credited for having the vision for making Lookout Mountain what it is today. In 1924, Carter purchased 700 acres around this location to launch a new residential neighborhood on top of Lookout Mountain known as Fairyland. Carter was a promoter, and he was a good one. This main trail we've been on is called the Enchanted Trail. There are iconic attractions along this path like the Needle's Eye and a swinging bridge that was closed during our visit. And there's also Fat Man Squeeze. Yes, that's the name of it. And yes, I guess that's fat shaming. But no, not really, because there is a lot of food to purchase here at Rock City. Candy, fudge, and everything you would expect. So even if you feel shamed, this isn't where you want to start a diet or anything. Just suck that gut in and get her done. I've never heard of anyone getting stuck. One of the marketing campaigns that Rock City seems to have abandoned is 7 States View. The claim for almost 100 years is that you can see 7 states from Rock City. Spoiler alert, that's not true. If you're local, feel free to light me up in the comments, but you know it's not true. And it's never been true. Someone at the University of Tennessee gave Rock City an out years ago by saying that maybe it was possible to see 7 states years ago, but because of modern air pollution, you can't see 7 states now. Well, hold on. Air quality in the Tennessee Valley is much better than it was 50 years ago. Rock City is about 1,700 feet above sea level. This part of Lookout Mountain is, well, barely a mountain. The curvature of the earth makes it impossible to see 7 states, but the myth that you can see 7 states goes all the way back to the Civil War. So I don't blame Rock City for giving it a try. Besides, as you've seen already in this video, the views up here are spectacular. The 7 states claim isn't really necessary. Earlier in the video, I mentioned Lookout Mountain and caves. Fairy Tale Caverns are actually artificial and were created by excavating and carving through the limestone rock here on Lookout Mountain. Rock formations and caves are so common on Lookout Mountain that locals assume Fairy Tale Caverns are natural caverns. Anyway, inside these artificial caverns, visitors can find a series of dioramas depicting classic fairy tales and nursery rhymes. The scenes are brought to life with colorful sculptures and blacklight effects. This section is one of the reasons I wanted to share my opinion instead of just making a facts video. Fairy Tale Caverns have always captured my attention for good and frustrating reasons. This part of Rock City is from the imagination of Frida Carter. I mentioned earlier that she loved European folklore, which was enjoying somewhat of a renaissance for a couple of decades leading to World War II and continuing well into the 1950s. Walt Disney's Snow White benefited tremendously from this renaissance, as did other Disney classics. By the late 1960s, European folklore became Americanized and up until recently enjoyed a kind of strange, self-generating nostalgia. Rock City is all about gnomes. There are over 100 gnomes here. They're everywhere, and they can be in your home too because there are plenty of gnomes that can be purchased at the gift shop. The theme here is as clear as mud: gnomes, fairy tales, Mother Goose. If the gnomes have a specific story here on Rock City, it's not really made clear. Gnomes are a part of fairy tales, but they seem to dominate the landscape here. But I think I'm the only person in the world who questions this. This attraction has been around so long that it amazes locals simply because it's nostalgic now on its own accord, and that's great. I've just always wondered why they haven't gone bigger. I mean, I think there should be like an amusement park up here with roller coasters and everything, but that's just me. But I want you to imagine the scene this way. A hot, crowded day here at Rock City Gardens, but as you enter this section, you're shaded from the sun. There are trickles of water here and there, a small waterfall or two, and you begin to cool off, and then you're treated to this underground world of fairy tales under blacklight. It's refreshing and psychedelic. It's interesting enough to capture your attention, but not necessarily memorable. But that's not really the issue. I'm always asking myself, who is this for? Is it for kids? If so, what age? I mean, Disneyland and later Magic Kingdom ran into this with the old Snow White ride. For little kids, this can be kind of scary. Some young children lose it in Fairy Tale Caverns and start screaming, because to some kids, this is more like a nightmare than a fairy tale. Trust me, I've been there when the screaming starts. Fairy tales under a black light are kind of scary if you're, 3 to 6 years old. And these days, kids in their 20s might cry and need a safe space. Okay, that was a cheap shot. This experience for preteens might be a little boring. Now, maybe it's just me, but I've always thought that parents enjoy this more than the kids do. And I guess that's fine, they're paying for it. But seriously, this is nostalgic for me because of an amusement park my parents took me to when I was 4 years old that does the fairy tale thing right and on a grand scale. It's in Holland, and it's called Efteling, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Efteling. If you've heard of it, let me know in the comments. It's a pretty big deal. This European amusement park is more popular now than it was back in the 1970s when my parents took me. So my problem with Fairy Tale Caverns and the whole gnome thing is it's not executed as well as I think it could be. But what do I know? It's still a lot of fun, and I know you'll enjoy it, especially on your first visit. It is kind of mind-blowing. Rock City Gardens is worth your time. In fact, it's worth the extra time it takes to get off the interstate in Chattanooga that's almost always bumper-to-bumper traffic. So go ahead and take the trip up Lookout Mountain to this amazing roadside attraction, Rock City Gardens. It's fun for the entire family. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a comment and share your Rock City experience. Hey, and if I've left anything out, be sure to include that in the comments as well. Sharing this video is also helpful, so if you haven't already, go ahead and click the subscribe button, share the video, and here are some other videos I think you'll enjoy. My name is Bill Marion, and this is A Nose for Life.